Before you go, we'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We read everyone. These stories are meant to bring us closer, no matter the miles between us. And if today's story moved you, imagine what tomorrow holds. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell so you're first in line when the next chapter drops tomorrow. One story, one moment, one more reason to believe. See you then. Jasmine Taylor had always believed that motherhood would be her turning point, a fresh start, a clean page after a messy chapter. At 28 years old, she had finally found some peace in her life. Living in a small two-bedroom apartment just outside Atlanta, Georgia, she worked part-time at a community center, spent her evenings reading baby name books, and walked half a mile each morning to stay active. Pregnancy hadn't been easy. There were moments of loneliness, fear, and doubt. But there was also hope, and Jasmine held on to that hope with both hands. On a sunny Wednesday morning in July, Jasmine walked into a local women's clinic for what she thought would be a routine 32-week prenatal checkup. She wore her favorite yellow maternity dress, the one that made her feel confident, and carried a neatly folded list of questions in her purse. This baby was her world, and she wanted to do everything right. The receptionist smiled kindly and asked her to take a seat. Jasmine waited patiently, gently rubbing her belly, feeling little kicks like whispers of life from within. Then the door opened. "Miss Taylor," a voice called. Jasmine stood up, smiled, and followed the nurse down the hallway, past pale walls and posters about prenatal care. She was led into a cold examination room and told the doctor would be in shortly. A few minutes later he arrived. Dr. William Clark was tall, balding, with a stiff white coat and a look of practiced indifference. He glanced at her chart, barely making eye contact. Without a smile, without any warmth, he began the appointment. His tone was clipped. His questions were fast. And then, suddenly, his comments shifted, from medical to personal. "So, no. Father listed here?" he said, raising an eyebrow. Jasmine felt her heart drop. "He's not in the picture," she said softly. Dr. Clark scoffed. "Figures. Another single mum. You girls always show up alone." The room went still. Jasmine's hands tightened around her dress. Was she hearing him right? "I just hope you're not expecting government aid for all this," he muttered as he checked her belly with icy fingers. "Taxpayers are already carrying enough." Every sentence that followed pierced deeper. He questioned her education, her job, even implied that she was irresponsible for getting pregnant at all. Not once did he ask how she was feeling, or if the baby was moving well, or if she had any concerns. Instead, he made her feel like a burden, like a statistic, like she didn't belong there. By the time the appointment ended, Jasmine could barely stand. Her voice was caught in her throat. She walked out without saying a word, blinking back tears that burned hot and bitter. That day, something inside her cracked. Not just her trust in that doctor, but her trust in the very system meant to protect her. What should have been a simple checkup had turned into something much darker. And Jasmine, like so many others, was left to carry the weight of it in silence. Jasmine didn't remember much of the walk home, just the sting behind her eyes and the sound of her sneakers scraping the pavement. The doctor's voice still echoed, in her mind like a bad song stuck on repeat. "You girls always show up alone. Hope you're not expecting handouts." Each word had landed like a slap, and now every time she tried to push it out of her head, it came roaring back louder. By the time she reached her apartment, barely a 15-minute walk from the clinic, her hands were shaking. She sat on the edge of the couch, still in her yellow dress, staring at the peeling wallpaper across from her. For a moment, she felt like she was 12 again, being scolded by a teacher who assumed the worst of her. But this wasn't school. This was supposed to be healthcare, and the man judging her wasn't some stranger. He was a doctor. Later that night, Jasmine called her best friend, Monique. She tried to tell the story, but her voice cracked halfway through. "He didn't see me as a person," she whispered. "Just some problem. Some stereotype." Monique was furious. "You should report him," she said. "You have to say something." But Jasmine hesitated. Report him? To who? Would anyone even listen? Would they believe her? A single black woman with no health insurance, living in a rented unit and pregnant, without a partner. She imagined the clinic brushing her off, maybe even labeling her as difficult or emotional. That's what they always did. That's how these stories disappeared, quietly and without consequence. Still, the damage was already done. Over the next few days, Jasmine noticed changes. She stopped smiling during her morning walks. Her steps slowed. Her appetite faded. At night, she'd lie awake, hands on her belly, wondering if her baby could feel her stress. Her body ached in strange places, not from the pregnancy, but from holding in all that shame. She skipped her next appointment, and the one after that. The thought of going back, of sitting in another sterile room where someone might look at her, like she didn't deserve to be a mother, it was too much. So she stayed home. She Googled symptoms. She watched YouTube videos about breathing techniques and labor positions. But deep down, she knew she needed real care. And yet, real care had failed her. The scariest part? If something went wrong, no one would know. No doctor would have her file. No nurse would be familiar with her pregnancy. She was alone, completely and utterly. But Jasmine wasn't just afraid. She was angry. And that anger, it was starting to bloom into something else, something dangerous, something powerful. A quiet thought began to form at the back of her mind. What if I told my story? What if someone finally listened? She didn't know it then, but that question would change everything. Because silence might protect her, but speaking up could protect someone else. Weeks turned into months. The seasons changed. Summer's warmth gave way to the chill of October, and with it came the arrival of Jasmine's son, Noah, a healthy baby boy born at 6 pounds 12 ounces, with soft curls and big brown eyes just like hers. But even as she held him for the first time, something inside her felt distant. There should have been joy, celebration, relief. Instead, she felt like she was floating outside of her own life, watching herself go through the motions, because the trauma hadn't ended in that exam room. It had followed her home. It had crept into every corner of her world. Jasmine struggled to sleep. When she did sleep, the dreams were fragmented, bits of white coats, harsh voices, cold hands. She'd wake in the middle of the night, heart racing, convinced something was wrong with Noah. She'd rush to his crib, touch his chest, listen for breath. He was always fine. But she wasn't. There were days she couldn't bring herself to leave. The apartment. Even walking past the clinic gave her anxiety. Her chest would tighten, her palms would sweat. She avoided calling for checkups or vaccinations. She feared being judged again, being spoken to like she was worthless, like her child. Didn't deserve care just because of who she was. Friends tried to help. Monique brought over groceries. Her neighbor, Miss Ruth, offered to watch Noah so Jasmine could rest. But Jasmine rarely accepted. Shame clung to her like a second skin. It wasn't just about that one doctor anymore. It was about every system that had failed to protect her. Worse still, she felt guilty. She blamed herself for not speaking up, for walking out of that room in silence. She wondered if she had been overreacting. Maybe she was just emotional, hormonal, tired. Maybe that's why no one believed women like her when they spoke up, because they were always told their pain was too loud, their stories too messy, but it was real. It was so real. The emotional toll bled into her relationships. She stopped, answering calls from family. She ghosted her doula. At her 6-week postpartum visit, she almost cancelled, until Monique physically showed up, picked her up, and drove her there. The nurse practitioner who met her that day was kind. She listened. She asked questions. She looked Jasmine in the eyes, and for the first time in months, Jasmine cried in front of someone who didn't flinch. That visit didn't fix everything, but it cracked open a door. It reminded Jasmine that healing doesn't start with justice, it starts with being seen. Still, the damage was done. Her trust in the healthcare system had been shaken to the core. And while the world moved on, Jasmine carried something invisible, the fear of not being believed. That's the kind of pain that lingers, not because it's loud, but because it's ignored. And Jasmine? She wasn't ready to stay quiet anymore. 15 years had passed. Noah was now a teenager, tall, soft-spoken, with a love for coding and a heart bigger than his frame. Jasmine had raised him on her own, every scraped knee, every science fair, every sleepless night. She was there. And though the scars of the past still lived in her, she had built a life, one brick at a time. But some wounds don't fade, they just grow quiet. For years, Jasmine kept that clinic story locked away like a secret. She never told her co-workers, she never told Noah. To the outside world, she was just a proud single mom with a stable job and a warm smile. But inside, that memory still burned like it happened yesterday. Then came the headlines. One by one, stories started emerging. Women of color speaking out about discrimination in hospitals, about doctors who dismissed their pain, nurses who ignored their instincts, babies lost, lives changed forever. Jasmine read each story with trembling hands, different names, different cities, but the same patterns. It wasn't just her, and suddenly silence didn't feel like safety anymore, it felt like complicity. One night, after Noah had gone to bed, Jasmine sat at her kitchen table, opened her laptop, and began to write. Not a tweet, not a status update, a letter. Honest, raw, full of truth she had never said out loud, not even to herself. She described the yellow dress, the look on Dr. Clark's face, the things he said, the way she froze. She didn't write for a pity, she wrote to be seen. That letter became a blog post, then an interview, then a panel invitation. A friend forwarded it to a healthcare advocacy group, and soon Jasmine was speaking to nursing students, medical boards, and even legislators. Every time she told her story, her voice got stronger, clearer, less afraid. But it wasn't easy. Some people doubted her, said maybe she remembered it wrong, that it was too long ago, that surely the doctor didn't mean it that way. But Jasmine held firm, because the details never left her, not the cold exam table, not the sting in her throat, not the way she questioned her own worth for years after. No, she remembered everything, and now so did everyone else. For the first time, Jasmine saw how powerful her voice could be. She wasn't just telling a story, she was lighting a path for others, women who had stayed silent, mothers who had blamed themselves, girls who thought they had to tough it out because no one would believe them. Her pain had become a torch, and with every word she spoke, Jasmine reclaimed what was taken from her, not just dignity, but purpose. This wasn't just about her anymore. This was about justice, about change, about never letting what happened in that room happen again, to anyone. The ripple effect started slowly, an email here, a phone call there. A nursing student messaged Jasmine after one of her talks, "I was going to quit med school. Now I know why I need to stay." Another woman from Houston wrote, "Your story was my story too." Jasmine never expected this. She had once felt invisible, just another name, another number in a system that failed her. But now her words were traveling farther than she ever imagined. From podcasts to policy rooms, from quiet coffee shop meetings to national healthcare summits, Jasmine became a voice people listened to, and more importantly, a voice people believed. She testified before a state committee on maternal care reform, her palms sweaty, but her gaze steady. She told lawmakers about the pain of being dismissed, about the thousands of women whose stories never reached a microphone. She didn't speak in statistics, she spoke in scars. When they asked her what needed to change, she didn't hesitate. "Bias training won't fix a broken system," she said. "So we need accountability, oversight, safe spaces for patients to report discrimination without fear. And we need more women, black women, at the decision-making table." Some nodded politely, others looked uncomfortable, but Jasmine didn't care anymore, because this wasn't about making people comfortable, it was about making people listen. Hospitals began inviting her to sit on advisory boards. She helped develop new patient advocacy protocols. One clinic, just 10 miles from the one where it all began, reached out and asked her to consult on their equity initiative. She said yes, not out of forgiveness, out of responsibility, because Jasmine understood something most people didn't. It's not enough to tell the story. You have to fight to change the ending for someone else. She still remembered the girl in the yellow dress, scared, small, staring at the floor while a doctor dismantled her dignity in under 15 minutes. That girl had been silent. But now, she had a microphone, and she wasn't giving it back. Noah, now 15, watched from the sidelines, proud and protective. He once asked, "Mom, why do you keep telling that story if it hurts so much?" Jasmine smiled, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. "Because it still hurts someone else," she said, "and I don't want them to carry it alone." Her story wasn't wrapped in a bow. It didn't have a perfect resolution. But it had movement. A push forward, a crack in the wall, a beginning of something bigger than just healing. It was about dignity, it was about justice, and most of all, it was about not staying silent ever again. Jasmine's story isn't just hers. It's one that echoes across generations, across race lines, across hospital rooms, and waiting areas where silence was forced and dignity was taken. If you've ever been dismissed, misjudged, or made to feel small when all you needed was care, you're not alone. Her voice today represents the millions who were never given a chance to speak. So now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching this from? What part of her journey resonated with your own? Have you ever experienced or witnessed discrimination in healthcare, or maybe in another part of life where you expected support and were met with judgment? Drop your stories. In the comments, even just a sentence. Let this be a space where we listen, where we validate, and where we stand together. Every comment you leave is a light for someone else who may still be sitting in the dark, waiting for a sign that they're not alone. And don't forget to subscribe. We have more powerful, real-life stories coming. Ones that will make you think, feel, and maybe even change something. The next chapter arrives tomorrow. Be here for it.